There was a newspaper article in 1970 that came out that said, was Charles Manson's dad a black cook from Cincinnati? When you had a conversation with Charles Manson, it would jump all over the place. I mean, we could be talking about what he ate, and the next thing we could be talking about was, do you know that a normal person blinks their eyes 8 times a minute? My videos are kind of like a Manson conversation. They just jump all over the place. They go from one thing to the next thing to like, what was that all about? The last video I was talking about, I wasn't really talking about anything. I was only in it. I was talking in it about Manson's dealings with, at the time, think about that last video. If you didn't watch it, basically the gist of it was Manson was working for a mob boss in West Virginia, and the mob boss was also working for the government at the same time. So technically, Manson was working for the government and a mob boss at the same time in that last video. And also he got friendly with the Puerto Ricans. Don't forget about the Puerto Rican part, because we're jumping around in these videos and that ain't even coming in this video. Puerto Ricans will come up some other time, but that's just how these videos work. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm just here to make you think at places that you didn't even think before. In another video, a couple back, we showed Charlie's Kentucky home. Well, here it is again, and this is him and his grandmother in the side yard of it, which you can still see in that video. The house pretty much looks the same. That's him and his grandmother. And his grandmother held these kind of pictures in her family Bible. And that's her of Charlie too. This photo also comes from Charles Manson. And it was labeled C. Manson, Navy, United States. The people who've listened to Manson talk, you can hear it in his voice sometimes when he talks about the military. He talks about how he has blood family that was in World War II, World War I, the Civil War. And it's like Manson's entire family is military people, and they died for America. So he should have his rights because of his people dying for America. He was always saying that sort of thing, and he was always saying that, those military people, they raised me in those prisons. He talked about being raised by the military people. Then there's the people that write the books that only get small interviews out of 1 or 2 people about Manson's whole life, and then they write about Manson's whole life. And if something information they don't have doesn't add up, they just call Manson a liar. For instance, when he talks about his uncle. Here's a picture of Charlie and his mom. You know what I find funny about Gen's book? And everybody's book, honestly. I don't believe anybody's book, to tell you the truth. Little pieces of them, they're entertaining. Like I said before, and in plenty of videos, they should be in a fiction area. But what I find entertaining about Gen's book is he uses a story about when Manson was traded as a little kid for a pitcher of beer. And the story does have truth to it. It has a lot of truth to it. His mom, she was pretty loose, and she would take off, and she was also a lush, an alcoholic that would just run off with guys. And it comes through, a lot of people know a lot of families who have people like that, who would just leave their kids, and yeah. And she probably left them with a pitcher of beer. So he uses that story in here. And then later on, he says that Manson talks about his Uncle Jess, and he says, oh, that guy's made up. Manson just made him up. It's because he didn't have a place to put him. So, since there's no place to put him, and you don't know who he is anyway, because you only did interviews with like a couple people, Manson just made him up. But actually, Manson didn't make him up, and he falls into the line with the story of a pitcher of beer. And by the way, I did buy this book. I mean, I buy most of the books, and I really like to buy the books if I can get them signed from the people. And this one I actually got. I was looking for this thing for Uncle Jess. I was thinking, isn't it funny? And the 1960s counterculture, that there's a lot of conspiracy theories, but I don't really call them conspiracy theories. Some of them are like coincidences theories, because it's like, it makes me think a lot about like military intelligence, like we were talking about at the very beginning, how Manson says that, his family is full of military intelligence and all that sort of stuff. It gets me thinking about into the case, like Jim Morrison's dad was in military intelligence, and then the dude ends up dead. And Sharon Tate's dad was really into military intelligence to a point that it made me wonder. And just strange. So it got me thinking, because there's a lot of them down the line. I mean, put in the comments if you know anybody else that was involved, that counterculture that had, their dad was in military intelligence of some sort, that somehow ended up dead. It's kind of, I don't find it a conspiracy. I find it fishy, actually. Or interesting to think about, because in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. None of it really matters. But it got me thinking, if you were involved, like say in the CIA, and part of your mission was to have a child, and later on we're going to use that child. Somehow, some sort, we're going to use that child. And a bunch of people all do it at sort of around, same 10, 15 year period. Just so that they can send these children out into the world, and then since they're parents of them, they can guide them. Or they can follow them. Or what? Gets you thinking a lot, doesn't it? But anyway, what was we talking about? We're talking about Jess. In the hills of Kentucky, there's a speakeasy. Actually, I did a video on it quite a while back, and many of others have too, so you can find it on YouTube. A speakeasy that Kathleen used to hang out with, and she used to take the young Charlie too, when he was about the same size as the pictures with him and his grandmother there. And while she was there, people love Charlie, of course. I mean, chicks dig babies and they dig dogs and kittens. They're all the same. So basically, Kathleen found a free babysitter. And on top of that, have a pitcher of beer. The problem with Kathleen is she never came back. So the grandmother had to go find the baby Charlie. And to find the baby Charlie, the grandmother doesn't have a car. The grandmother doesn't have anything. So she turns to the local minister, because at that time they were Methodists. Up until Charlie was 6 years old, he was a Methodist. So she went to the local preacher. And the local preacher was Jess Oakley. And Jess Oakley, he went to get Charlie Manson and brought him home to the grandma. And Jess Oakley was sort of like almost a companion to the grandma. Because Charlie said Jess Oakley visited the grandma even when she was in West Virginia. So maybe they had a boyfriend, girlfriend kind of thing going on. But Jess Oakley was the minister. And he went and recovered Charlie from that little story that Ginn told that has no Jess Oakley in it. Jess Oakley was a preacher in the Methodist Church in Ashland, Kentucky. Grandma was a Highlander from Moorhead, Kentucky, and Granddad was a Flatlander. Think differently. I almost said Ed Gein's book. He is kind of like Ed Gein, kind of War Man's skin in a sort of a way. I don't know how to say it really. I'm probably going to end up saying Jeff Gein again because I just like Ed Gein. We'll call him Ed Gein. Another thing I don't like about the book is he takes all his information from the daughter of one cousin. A cousin that grew up with Manson all of, couple years maybe. His whole life story, it comes from her. The things that he can't find, calls Manson a liar, or he fills him in with lies. And he really doesn't really tell too much except Bugliosi's story. Bugliosi again. Bugliosi. I can't say these people's names. I'm just a redneck hillbilly. That's just how we do things. So if it comes out wrong, it comes out wrong, man. This part of it pretty much is Bugliosi's book. This much right of it here is from the cousin's kid, and the same pictures that I got from the email. It was Manson's cousin. I got him like 6 years earlier. Well, he took, you know, the few pictures that he got from her, a little bit of information he got from her. He really didn't go get information from anybody else. And at the time, he was claiming Bugliosi was right on it, you know, right all for him, and this was like the second part of Bugliosi's book. And so Bugliosi was a big fan of Gens, however you say it. Started thinking about those intelligence people again. If he was an intelligence of like from the Navy or the Air Force or wherever, or in the CIA, that's what intelligence really means. You have some special hookup with the CIA. You think if you were in that, you would take your honor to your grave? You'd take those secrets with you until you just went to your grave and you wouldn't tell anybody about it? Because people don't really know who these agents are anyway, unless they come out and tell on themselves, which now they do nowadays. Like, yeah, I was a secret agent, I was an agent for, they all do it now. But there was an honor way back when. Do you think there's agents that went to their graves with secrets that they never ever told about? What's this video about again? Oh yeah, the black man, the black cook that was Manson's dad in Cincinnati. I keep forgetting what I'm talking about because I keep thinking about these CIA spies in my head. I have a fascination with CIA spies. A lot of people have asked me, do you believe in chaos? Chaos. I don't believe the government used Manson like that. So do I believe in chaos? Yeah, portions of it, man. Yeah, sure. Why not? Again, all these books. Make up your own mind. What do you think? Maybe you might think something differently by the time this video's over with. Maybe it might add on to the thought of, yeah, chaos, that's chaos, because we're getting to something that's pretty chaosy coming up right next. Do you think that the CIA, again, back to the CIA, I have all kinds of questions though. I want you to answer what you think. Because these questions are, I really have these questions. Now I forget what the question was. It was something about the CIA. Yeah. Do you think the CIA manipulates the media? Do you think they're involved with the media? From all the stuff that anybody might know about what happened with Facebook and all that stuff, do you think the government's involved in the media? Do you think they try to manipulate you through the media? Do you think they tried to do it in the Manson case when it was going on, that Helter, Skelter case? Do you think they were trying to manipulate you to think something that was, like him going in a hole in the desert and all that stuff? You think that was all manipulation? And do you think it could have been coming from the CIA? That stuff in chaos, yeah, I believe wholeheartedly. Why would I believe that? Because I don't believe they're telling us anything I don't think that, and none of it's the truth. You hear Manson say all the time, it was just a big movie. From the day he was born, it was a big movie. So when it comes to what books to read, I would say read them all. Buy everybody's book. Because they're all like a script. This is like a script. This is a script that they'd give to a character. The other book is a, script. George Stimpson's book is the script they gave to Blue. And so on. They're all scripts to this big movie. But some of the parts of the movie that they didn't think were interesting enough for the public, or maybe too interesting for the public to see, they got, and they landed on the cutting room floors. We're looking for the pieces on the floor. That's what we're looking for. So read all the books. Absolutely. Read every one of them, even this one. And if you could get them signed, that's more the better, because the value goes up way more if they're signed. So, yeah, read everybody's book. but don't believe none of them. So let's get back to the guy in the picture here. The other day, I did a video on Manson's dads, you know, the Manson guy, and Colonel Scott. And I was telling you basically, Colonel Scott was just like a Kentucky Fried Chicken, really, because he was nothing to do with the military or any of that sort of stuff. So none of that military stuff came from Colonel Scott's side of the family. And I was also saying in there, I was telling you, if you didn't see it, go back and watch it, because I'm not going to repeat it. But in the comments, it's really got interesting, because the guy says, you got that story, I think you got the story confused. And I started thinking, I thought, oh, wow, yeah, he thinks I'm confused. So I kind of gave something away there. I better tell him the rest of the story then. I don't think I was confused there. I think Manson did meet his real dad, Manson. I think he knew who his real dad, Manson, was. And the more that I think about things throughout Manson's life, I think he took right after his dad. Seriously. And it wasn't Colonel Scott. Just listen to Manson throughout his stories. He tells you all about it, really. He tells you about, you know, all he seen was his grandfather's boots as he was, you know, going off to the military. He always said stuff like that. Listen to him. He may be actually telling you the real truth about everything, and nobody's listening. And he's just trolling right along, being the Helter Skelter guy. So I think it was one of the most fascinating stories in history, if you really want to ask me. But I'll let you decide, because, you know, I'm not telling you how to think. I'm just telling you to think way, way different. I'm sure we can all agree there's been so many diversions to Charlie's dad was a black cook in Cincinnati, Colonel Scott, Manson. Nobody knows who his dad is. We can all say that, right? I think Charlie knew who his dad was. Seriously, I think he did. That's the guy in the picture. I think that could have. I thought it was his grandfather at first. Then I started thinking, damn, that could be his dad. He didn't tell me that. He just said this was Manson from, you know, it says see Manson on the picture, and it says Navy. Okay, what the hell's that mean? It means it's Charlie's picture, and it's the guy from the Navy. Okay, sure. He's related to this dude in the Navy. And he knows it because he showed me the picture. He gave me the picture, actually. At the time that Kathleen had this baby, he would have probably been twice her age at that point. But he was really close to the area, too. I'm not going to out the full guy's name, but his name's Manson. C. Manson. C. Manson, yes. He lived in the area of Virginia. He was in the Navy. And there's another interesting thing about this guy. It just gets me thinking even more. Because this C. Manson dude, he has a military record like you wouldn't believe. And another thing about the C. Manson dude, he was part of a CIA program. But this C. Manson wasn't being controlled by the government. Like the C. Manson in Chaos, how the government was using that C. Manson as an experiment, or so we think, or so some think. This C. Manson and this CIA experiment, he was running the experiments. This was a memorandum for Brigadier General John McGruger, it looks like. But anyway, there's a whole bunch of people on this list that are privy to this information in this program of the CIA. And there's a guy right there, C. Manson. And what was this? It was a general CIA record for a program back in May 28th, 1951, and it was on psychological warfare. brainwashing. You know what really bothers me about the media? Here I go off on another tangent, but you know what really bugs me about the media? They don't ever do any research. All they do is they do interviews. They do interviews with people. They don't go out and they don't dig into the story anymore. They don't try to find the truth. I think they stopped trying to find the truth back in 1960s. I think they just didn't care about the truth anymore. It was now being controlled by somebody else. Just like I think this little article about Manson and his dad and being a cook, and I think it's all propaganda. I think it was all propaganda. Remember when Manson says he ended the Vietnam War? He sounds like a crazy man there. He could have actually ended the Vietnam War. You ever think about the prison system? Think about the prison system when you're, say, most of the people that watch this are my age, so when we were kids, the prison system was like this. Everybody going to the prison system was like going into the military, because they cut your hair off. You ain't have no facial hair. Everybody gonna look like everybody else in the entire prison. Manson goes into prison, and what Manson do? He got long hair and a beard, and now everybody's allowed to have it because Manson now has it. Manson has this control over the prison system like nobody ever had either. He has control over interviews. He's the most interviewed person, and it's like there's something to all that stuff. All that stuff could add up into all kinds of things. And not the stories that we got. I mean, we got these, he wants to climb in a hole out in the desert. Yeah, right. Anyway, back to this Manson guy, who now I think is Manson's dad. At one point I thought it was his grandfather when he gave me the picture, but now I think it's his dad. I used to always think it was on the side of, the Maddox family, the Kentucky people. I always thought it was that, but I don't think so. I think it's actually the Manson side. The Manson side of the family, because this dude looks like the pictures. The pictures, he looks like this picture. His name is this picture. He was a decorated guy in the Navy. It matches up so much. And then doing I'm probably done the most research of Manson as anybody ever has, probably. Just out of fun, really, and curiosity and that sort of thing. And I knew the dude, and all kinds of things add up to do more and more and more and more and more, And before you know it, you've done so much, like, dang, man, I know way more than everybody else seems to know. But anyway, let's get back to this dude. This dude in the Secret Service. I keep saying Secret Service because Secret Service actually came to visit me, which is kind of weird if you think about it. The Secret Service coming to visit me because of some prisoner? That's kind of weird. And then, even the President of the United States, he mentions that prisoner too. He's like, yeah, that dude's more guilty than anybody's guilty. And didn't even get any recourse for it. Man, all these things just blow my mind. Anyway, back to this dude. This dude who was in the Secret Service. Again, back to the dang Secret Service. I got them on my mind because, actually, the Secret Service. Man, there's so many things involved with the government when it has to do with Manson, and everybody just kind of marks him off as being absolutely not. The first time that Charlie went to jail, he didn't go to jail. He went to a military training school. And back again, and people that are watching that are my age know, we used to get threatened with that. If you were bad, they would we're going to send you to military school. Because military school basically taught you how to be a little military person. And they also taught you the tactics of what might come if you do join the military one of these days. So Charlie Manson did not go to jail for the first time. His mom enrolled him in a very expensive military school for the first time. And his mom was one very broke person. Okay, I'm thinking about the CIA again, and I have another question for you. Do you think in the history of the CIA, all these jobs that they have, were disguises, they put them in foreign lands, they put them in motorcycle gangs, they put them the CIA is everywhere. You've seen the movies. Do you think in the history of the CIA anywhere that they put one of their agents in prison? Do you think that? Because that sure is a possibility. But again, I'm not telling you how to think. I'm just telling you to think differently. And until next time, we come back and come up with some, what did I say it was? A coinspiracy.